I want to be very specific about the legacy you're going to leave if you're successful in eliminating half of our efforts to clean our water and our air. Your legacy will be more lung cancer. It'll be more bladder cancer. It'll be more head and neck cancer. It'll be more breast cancer. It'll be more leukemia and pancreatic cancer, more liver cancer, more skin cancer, more kidney cancer, more testicular cancer, more colorectal cancer, more rare cancers of innumerable varieties. That will be your legacy.
Adam Schiff didn't just criticize the Trump EPA director. He laid out a warning about what happens when environmental protection is deliberately dismantled and who ultimately pays the price.
Mr. Schiff is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Master Zeldin, you've only been at the EPA for a few months, but in that time, you've done more to dismantle this agency than probably all of your predecessors put together. That may be a source of pride for you, but it is not for the American people. You've unlawfully terminated grants without justification. You've fired and pushed out some of the best scientists who inform EPA's decision-making. You refuse to spend money that Congress has appropriated to the EPA by law. And you've launched a pro-polluter effort to delete dozens of environmental protections. On top of all this, you've launched an effort to overturn California's Clean Air Act waivers that improve the quality of air breathed by 40 million Californians and by millions more in other states who have adopted California's high standards. That effort, for which my colleagues have decided to eliminate the filibuster to achieve, is not exactly what anyone would call cooperative federalism. But it's your budget that's the ultimate proof of your priorities. You propose cutting America's environmental agency by 55%, meaning that in your view and that of President Trump, more than half of the environmental efforts of the EPA, more than half of the efforts to make sure Americans have clean air and clean water are just a waste. They're just a waste. Meaning that Californians and people all over the country, when they breathe the air, thanks to your good work, it'll mean there's more diesel and more other particulate matter in the air. When they drink a glass of water, they may not be able to see it, but this water that Americans drink is going to have more chemicals like PFAS, forever chemicals in their water. This will be your good work. I want to be very specific about the legacy you're going to leave if you're successful in eliminating half of our efforts to clean our water and our air. Your legacy will be more lung cancer. It'll be more bladder cancer. It'll be more head and neck cancer. It'll be more breast cancer. It'll be more leukemia and pancreatic cancer, more liver cancer, more skin cancer, more kidney cancer, more testicular cancer, more colorectal cancer, more rare cancers of innumerable varieties. That will be your legacy. I don't know that that's a legacy that anyone should want to have. My kids are going to be breathing that air just like yours. My family's going to be drinking the water just like yours. We may not be able to pinpoint just who gets cancer because you've done away with half the budget of those looking out for our clean water and clean air. But it's going to be somebody's kids, it's going to be somebody's family. To put this in more specific terms, there are 22 grants frozen by the EPA focused on improving health and reducing pollution, many of which directly impact children. For example, one project in Santa Ana, California, provided funding to help detect and prevent lead poisoning in children. According to the census, about 10% of the population in Santa Ana are under the age of 9. With a population of about 310,000 people, that means that 31,000 children are at risk of lead poisoning in Santa Ana without this funding. What is it about this grant that you and EPA believe is problematic enough to freeze this funding and put potentially 31,000 children at risk?
Senator, who is the grant applicant?
This is to the city of Santa Ana.
You have the biggest,
And are
you have
you-
the biggest
are you-
state, so we're
and
going
are
to have to
you-
go through every single list of the grant.
Well,
By the way, with that
I'm-
wind up, by the way, I understand that you were an aspiring fiction writer. I see why.
Oh, yeah. Well, I understand your view that you can cut half of the agency and it won't affect people's health or their water, their air. That to me is a big fiction, Mr. Zeldin.
You forgot about the fact of cleaning up
I have to
the
think,
LA
Mr. Zeldin,
wildfires.
I think, Mr.
President, when
Zeldin,
I was
if
in San
your,
Diego,
if your children were
with the
drinking
Tijuana
water,
River sewage crisis,
if your
apparently
children
we're going
were
out on our
drinking
own for
water
that.
in Santa Ana, Mr. Zeldin, maybe you wouldn't be so cavalier about whether there was lead in their water. Maybe you would give a damn instead of coming in here and suggesting that any grant that takes lead out of the water must be waste, fraud, or abuse because
The
you
gentleman's
need
time has
because
expired.
you
Who said
need
that? The whole
the
thing,
money for a
everything
tax
you
cut
said,
for rich people
your time. It's all
because
make-believe.
you're totally beholden to the oil industry.
The gentleman's time-
You could give a rat's ass about how much cancer your agency
you're trying to
causes.
destroy.
The
Impeach,
gentleman's
resist.
time has expired.
What you just watched wasn't a partisan rant or a theatrical moment for the cameras. It was Senator Adam Schiff doing something that rarely happens in these hearings anymore, forcing accountability by connecting policy decisions to real human consequences. Schiff starts by establishing something important right away. He's not talking about hypotheticals or long-term abstract risks. He's talking about actions already taken in just a few months: terminated grants, fired scientists, frozen funds, and an aggressive rollback of environmental safeguards. This matters because environmental policy isn't symbolic, it's operational. When those systems are pulled apart, the effects don't show up in press releases, they show up in lungs, bloodstreams, and drinking water. One of the most powerful elements of Schiff's line of questioning is how he reframes the EPA budget cut. A 55% reduction isn't presented as a spreadsheet adjustment. Schiff translates it into what it actually means: fewer inspections, fewer protections, and fewer people whose job it is to prevent contamination before it reaches the public. When he says that in this worldview, clean air and clean water are treated as a waste, that's not rhetoric, it's a policy diagnosis. He then does something even more effective. He personalizes the consequences without making it about himself. By listing specific cancers linked to pollution exposure, lung, bladder, leukemia, pancreatic, Schiff isn't accusing the EPA administrator of directly causing disease. He's pointing out something more uncomfortable. When protections are stripped away, increased harm is not accidental, it's foreseeable. And when harm is foreseeable, responsibility doesn't disappear just because the process is bureaucratic. The exchange becomes especially revealing when Schiff brings up Santa Ana and the frozen grant designed to prevent lead poisoning in children. This is where the hearing stops being abstract governance and becomes a moral test. 31,000 children potentially affected, a specific city, a specific risk. And instead of engaging with that reality, the EPA director dodges, asking procedural questions, minimizing the concern, and then attempting to discredit Schiff personally. That moment matters more than the insult itself. When Schiff responds by calling out the idea that cutting lead prevention funding could somehow be harmless, he's exposing the core tension of this administration's environmental approach. The assumption is that protections are expendable because the costs are invisible, spread out, delayed, and statistically obscured. Schiff is doing the opposite, making those costs visible and immediate. This hearing also highlights a broader pattern in Trump-era governance. Environmental agencies are not being reformed for efficiency. They are being hollowed out to benefit polluters, deregulated industries, and donors who see public safeguards as obstacles to profit. When Schiff says the money is being redirected to tax cuts for the wealthy and deference to the oil industry, he's describing a policy trade-off, not a conspiracy theory. And the reason moments like this matter is because environmental damage doesn't stay confined to political boundaries. As Schiff says plainly, his kids breathe the same air. Zeldin's kids drink water too. Pollution doesn't care who you voted for. When regulatory systems fail, the damage is collective, even if the benefits of deregulation are private. This is what real oversight looks like. It's not about landing a viral insult. It's about drawing a straight line from decisions made in Washington to consequences felt in American homes. Schiff isn't saying one person will get cancer because of one vote. He's saying that when government abandons its duty to protect public health, someone always pays, and it's never the people writing the rules. If you want more breakdowns like this, not just what was said, but what it actually means for democracy, accountability, and everyday life, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and share it with someone who wants to understand how power is really exercised in these hearings. Every hearing, every decision, through a democratic lens.